Wait, are you going?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad, my bad. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's quick video, I wanted to take you through the steps of laying out a building. Now, this is for a post frame structure, which is what we're doing, but this could be utilized, these tips and tricks for really anything. So it doesn't matter what you're laying out. If you gotta find straight lines, square lines, you don't know how to do that, well, maybe this video is for you. So this building in particular is 40 foot by 56 foot long. Now, when we lay it out, we actually lay it out 1.5 inches less around the entire perimeter. And that is because we're just laying out for our columns, not the entire outside structure, because we're digging some piers, we're gonna set columns, and then we'll build around that. And that extra 1.5 inches is our 2x4 or 2x6 wall girts that'll go on the outside. So when you hear us saying some dimensions that don't make quite sense, know that we're actually subtracting 1.5 inches. So we're actually gonna look for 39 foot 9 inch by 55 foot 9 inch. First thing we're gonna do back here is we kind of already know, because this pad was put in by our excavator, he makes them a slightly larger than our site. We're just going to arbitrarily grab a couple points or this point to go off of, and Greg is gonna measure down and you're gonna mark 55.9. So I'm just gonna hook this nail that I set here in the corner. And this is kind of the easiest way to do it at first, is you just set some nails in the ground. You got a mark? Yeah, I got a pin. So now that we have these back 2 points marked, what we'll do is we'll use those as our constants, and we'll figure out the other 2 corners of our building by pulling a triangle or using the Pythagorean theorem. I don't like to do math per se, so I have a nice app on my calculator, which is the Construction Master Pro. If you're looking right here, this is the app. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to type in, it was 39 foot 9 inch run, 55 foot 9 inch rise. And that's going to give me a diagonal dimension of 68 foot 5 5/8. Now what we've done is we've got one of our tape measures is now pulled off of that first nail that we set. And we've got another tape measure that is pulled off of that first line that we marked out at 55 foot 9. Now, the important thing to also remember is that when you start measuring larger distances, if you're not using a steel tape, if you're using a fiberglass tape specifically, they will stretch and your dimensions can be inaccurate. So you don't want to over pull against your dimensions. You just want to get a nice taut pull on both of your tapes. And then I'm going to go 68.5, 5/8, find 39.9. I'm going to put those right together. Make sure my strings are nice and taut, and that's where I'm gonna set another nail. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the same 2 tape measures, and now we're just gonna pull it the opposite way. So I'm gonna pull the diagonal off of Greg's line down there, and then I'll pull my 39 foot 9 dimension from Zach's corner down there. And we're looking for that same 68.5 5/8. Now, the thing to remember is that this is not an accurate, like perfect mark, because right now what we're doing is we're finding our corner points so that we can set up our batter boards, which I'll show you that in just a couple minutes when I designate this last corner. 39.9 and 68.5 5/8. All right. So now that we have the 4 corners, we can set up our batter boards. What we're doing right now is we're checking for grade, and we're trying to find the highest point here on the pad. We already know that it's probably back here in this corner. So we're using our Stabila 350 rotary laser, which is set up over by Zach. What up, Zach? Finding the highest point. Is this gonna be it, Greg, back here? Yeah. So what we're gonna do with that grade mark is that will be the top of our sonotube that we'll use to set our concrete pier. And it's going to fluctuate across this grade on this pad, because the customer did not want to put in a full pad yet because of how high it is going to be on that far end. So our tubes will be sticking out of the ground probably about a foot or so. The other thing that we're going to use that elevation on the grade stick for is setting our batter boards, because the fact that this site is not perfectly level, that means if we just set our batter boards, let's say an eyeball dimension of 6-8 inches off of the ground, as we get to that end where the grade goes downhill, it's not going to be perfectly level. Our string line won't, and then that will mean that our dimensions could potentially be off. So we'll actually use the grade stick to set the tops of these batter boards all to the exact same dimension. Now all we're going to do is we're going to take a 2x4, usually about an 8-footer, and we're going to kind of eyeball it to be on an angle to this pad. So we don't want it to be too straight this way, parallel with the pad. We want it to be cutting it in almost a perfect 45 if possible. And then we're just going to go ahead and drive our jet stakes into this ground, which this is a bent jet stake, man. Let's grab a straight one. Now where is your elevation, Greg? How low do we want to go? All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and set that batter board right at elevation plus 6 inches. And we'll do this exact same thing on all 4 batter boards. Now here on this batter board, we're starting to get a little bit further out of the ground and there's a little bit more movement. So what I like to do is just grab one of these grade stakes, drive it in at a nice angle, and then I just throw a screw in. And that'll really stiffen it up, so when we pull on these things with our strings, they shouldn't move too much. Now that we have our 4 batter boards out, we got to set our string lines on the batter board, and that's where these pins come into play, because now we're going to run this string line. And once again, this is a temporary thing because we will double check all of these string dimensions with a tape measure after they're all set. But for now, we're going to visually eyeball setting this string over top of these marks, and then we'll nail them to the batter boards. Okay, Greg. I like mine. So I'm just setting a shingle nail here. That is where my mark is, and that is where the string is over top of the nail that we placed earlier. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that this string is nice and taut, but it's not a tow rope, so we're not going to use it to pull something with. We just need to make sure it's nice and taut. What I like to do is kind of pull it tight, get it close, and then this is my knot here. I've been using this for a long time. It's really good. All you're going to do is you're going to take your string, and I'll go through this slow, and twist your hand around and grab the string. See how it just wrapped around my hand? You're going to twist it around your hand, and then you're going to grab the string through that loop you just made, and that now is your loop that is also kind of like one of those cinch loops, so you can kind of tighten it up. But the best part is, if you don't like it, you can just pull it and it comes right out. So once again, flip your hand, pull that little string through the loop you made, and there you go. I always like to give it a little tug, and then once you snug it back, it won't come undone on you. But now this string line is over top of our nail, and we'll use these 2 nails, mine and the one down there that Greg has, and we'll pull measurements off of there to the other side bat board to get our 39'9" dimension. So we're just going to use that nice little notch in your tape measure, set it on the nail head, and once again, these are just temporary marks. I mean, they might be perfect, we'll see, but I'm going to measure over, and I'm going to mark right on my batter board at 39 foot 9 inches, and we'll do that on the other end as well. Okay, for this string line, we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Do you need a nail, Greg, or are you good? And we're going to pull the string over top of these nails, and then we'll measure to the other end. That way, even if this one isn't exactly perfect over top of our nails, at least when we go to pull the other dimension off of it, the 55 foot 9 inches away, that will be accurate to this line. So at least we know we're staying consistent. Yeah? Okay. Okay, Greg. Now this is another example of why it's good to use the laser to lay out your jet stakes and your batter boards, because if your batter boards are not all consistent in plane with each other at the same elevation, it can really mess this up. You see how we're just floating right over this guy? Now imagine if this string line was going downhill at a pretty steep percentage, it could potentially be pushing down on this string line and hindering it. So we want them to kind of be nice and free. And if you're at the same plane on all of your batter boards, that will be good. So just another tip and trick, something to consider when you're laying out your batter boards. Now, laying out a site is not always a three-man job. I usually say 2 men is the most efficient, but a third person is always nice, especially when you're laying out those first initial triangles, because you have 3 points. You know, your nail is set at 2 points, and sometimes the nail does not want to stay put. This site here is a little bit damp. We're coming out of winter, and we just got about 3/4 inch rain, so it's a pretty mushy site. So having Zach here today specifically, or having Greg here, or heck, having me here makes it a little bit easier. So now we have all of our string lines up. We've set them off of those pins that we use the tape measures to determine the exact corners of our building. Now what we're gonna do, since we have the string lines up, we'll go back and double check everything, make sure that all 4 of our wall dimensions are correct, but then we'll also double check that 68.5 and 5/8 diagonal dimension to ensure that it's perfectly square. And once that's done, we're ready to start laying out all of our post locations for the building. Now, what you're gonna see if you're looking at this tape measure is that I'm at 40 foot 9 inch. I wanna be at 39 foot 9 inch, but what I do is we always like to burn a foot. So if you hear us saying burn a foot, instead of holding the other end at the exact edge of the tape measure, we lose 1 foot. Maybe we'll show you what we're doing at the other end. I'm looking for 39 foot 9, so I'm gonna have Zach burn a foot, and that means now I'm looking for 40 foot 9. Now, if you look at that, we're probably 1/8 of an inch off. So this is what we do. I'm gonna come in here, and where my string line was, you always wanna make sure that you pull the nail. So I'm just gonna mark this over 1/8 of an inch, which was about the thickness of my string. And I'm gonna reset my nail, reset my string, and then we can double check this again, looking for 40 foot 9 inch. So right there, I'd say we're pretty good, and we'll do that on all 4 dimensions. Okay, you burning a foot, Zach? All right, so I am at 56 foot 9 inch. We're good here. Okay, now you come down here, Zach, and we're just gonna go around and we're gonna check all 4 dimensions. They should be pretty close. Sometimes they're 1/8 inch here or there just because we were eyeballing setting them over top of our nails. You'll know if it's off when you pull diagonal. If it ain't perfect on the diagonal, that's when you know the dimension's off. Go ahead and head to that diagonal there. And we're looking for that 68.5 and 5/8. This is where it really matters. Burning a foot, so 69.5 and 5/8. I can't even make this stuff up, guys. You haven't seen a cut line or an edit or nothing. 69.5 and 5/8.
There's a couple that I got the focus, but like there's a couple that I couldn't get the focus, you know?
Yeah, how about that skid loader though?
It's all right. You see what's behind it.
Nah.
Beauty lies behind.
I think it's beauty lies inside.
No, it's behind. But always behind.
Well, they say that if you can see it from the front, wait till you see it from the back. Come on, guys. We were just talking about Greg's truck. Get your minds out of the gutter. So that is how we lay out our sites. And at this point now, we have some nice string lines that are on those batter boards that are defining the exact outside dimension of our columns. So for us, because we're doing post frame, we're gonna go ahead and mark every 8 foot for our post locations and our door jambs. But hey, maybe if you're just doing a sidewalk or something like that, you could use your string lines to, you know, form up your outside dimension, whatever it is. I mean, this is a very simplistic thing, but this is how we do it. I hope it helped one of you guys out there, and if it did, then it was worth taking some time away from our day to make it for you. So if you did like it, make sure you hit that subscribe button or hit the thumbs up to let me know that you liked it, and we'll catch you guys in the next video. We're gonna get to work. Now, I've learned my mistake. I don't want to paint my tape measure because people on YouTube lose their freaking mind if you paint over your tape measure, even though it comes off. Now here, we're not burning a foot. We're hooked right on the nail there that we plumbed down from our string line. And remember, for us, since we are running 8 foot centers on our columns, but these pins are 1.5 inches in from the end, I'm actually going to take 1.5 inches off from my 8 foot dimension, and I'm going to mark 7 foot 10.5. And then I'm going to mark 15 10.5. 7 10.5. 15 10.5. 24. No, Greg! You can't spray a tape measure. That thing is trash now.
those videos where they like spray paint in the water and then they like dip like their hammer or something? Maybe we should do that with like our hard hat.
Yeah, that'd be cool.